All right, court is calling 2021 CR 10255, State of Texas versus Jose DelBosque. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Allie Jackson and Zach Dunn.
For the defense?
Eric Chuck for the defense.
Are both parties ready to proceed with trial, state,
Yes, Your Honor.
defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Deputy Laura, if you will bring the jurors in. Some ice up here and some of that tea before we please. Yeah. And just rather try. Where's your last tea? Yeah. I know it's not healthy to drink so much ice, but. I'm trying to stay very hydrated because of my allergy medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I find when I don't
Dries you out.
hydrate properly with allergy medicine,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
I
like
end
it.
up not doing well. Yes.
All rise for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And just give me one moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could raise your right hand for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an oath that's specifically for this jury trial. Do you and each of you solemnly swear or affirm in the case of the state of Texas against Mr. DelBosque, you will a true verdict render according to the law and the evidence, so help you God?
Yeah.
All right, you can lower your hand. State.
In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized, impaneled, and sworn as such at the November term AD 2021 of the 187th Judicial District Court of said county in said court at said term, do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, count one, on or about the 5th day of March 2021, Jose DelBosque, herein referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the anus of illegal defendant's sexual organ, and with the intent of facilitating the commission of the offense, the defendant administered and provided alcohol to count two. On or about the 5th day of March 2021, Jose DelBosque, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the sexual organ of by the defendant's sexual organ, and with the intent of facilitating the commission of the offense, the defendant administered and provided alcohol to three. On or about the 5th day of March 2021, Jose DelBosque, herein referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the mouth of Elise Moravi administered and provided alcohol to on or about the 5th day of March, 2021, Jose DelBosque, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the sexual organ of Elise Moravietz, a child, mouth of the defendant, and with the intent of facilitating the commission of the offense, the defendant administered and provided alcohol to Elise. On or about the 5th day of March, 2021, Jose DelBosque, herein referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause the penetration of the sexual organ of defendant's finger, and with the intent of facilitating the commission of the offense, the defendant administered and provided alcohol Elise and dignity of the state.
To each of those counts, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. State, do you have opening statements?
We do, Your Honor, and at this time, we would also like to invoke the rule.
All right, the rule will be invoked. You may proceed with your opening statements.
Thank you. Okay, please report. Let me be clear, folks. This isn't about anything that happened at a club. This is about on March 5th, 2021, 16-year-old Elise was sexually assaulted by this defendant. The 49-year-old boyfriend of her friend's mother, someone who she knew. Elise is now 19, and she's going to come in and talk to you guys and tell you about how she met her best friend Olivia sophomore year of high school at Alamo Heights. They became friends and began spending most of their time at Olivia's house. Olivia's mom was often around, and sometimes her boyfriend, Jose, was there. They were 16-year-old girls. She's going to tell you that that was her favorite place to go and hang out. Sometimes they drank because they both had fake IDs. They were wild teenagers. They liked to drink. Sometimes they bought themselves alcohol, had something to drink. He knew she was 16. They went to school together. Now, everything was normal. It's just a normal adult figure in her life until he got her phone number. And she's going to tell you that in February of 2021, they started texting. And it was still normal. She didn't think anything of it. But it all changed on the night of March 5th, 2021. Olivia's mom, Trisha, was out of town. And Jose took Olivia and Elise out to dinner, where he bought them margaritas. Elise is going to tell you he bought the margaritas. She was never asked for ID. This isn't about IDs, folks. That afterwards, he went and bought alcohol for her and Olivia, and they picked up the alcohol from him and had some drinks at Olivia's house because mom was out of town. During the night, Jose keeps texting Elise, wanting to hang out, wanting to go take her out to get some food. Elise at this point is drunk. And she's going to tell you, yeah, I was pretty drunk at this point. And she thinks that he's going to get her and they're going to go get food. But instead, he takes her to his home, where he gives her more alcohol that he has bought for her and proceeds to sexually assault her. She's going to tell you that she is in and out. Her memory is in and out because she is a drunk 16-year-old girl. She's going to tell you her memory comes in and out, but she knows he kissed her. He knows he kissed her breasts. He knows they had vaginal intercourse, that she performed oral sex on him, and that they had anal sex. And she just wanted to go home. And she kept telling him, I just want to go home. Finally, he decides to take her back to Olivia's house. And she's just wanting to get there, pretend this isn't happening. She doesn't know what to do. She's going to tell you all about this. Then they get stopped for a traffic stop at 2:30 in the morning by Castle Hills police. We're going to have several people from Castle Hills come in and talk about how things didn't seem right. This girl, who is obviously a minor, was out at 2:30 in the morning with a man 3 times her age. They knew something wasn't right. So they start questioning her. And eventually, she admits that, yes, we had sex. So then she's taken, but they also realize, hey, this happened in San Antonio Police Department jurisdiction. So the case gets transferred to them. But they take Elise to go get a SANE exam. And that SANE nurse is going to come in and talk about how emotional Elise was, how she was in pain, and how embarrassed she was going through this exam and having to talk about it. But even more important than the SANE nurse is going to be SAPD Detective Bigler, who's going to come in and talk about how he talked to Elise, but more importantly, how he talked to Jose. And Jose admits to everything. Jose admits to having vaginal sex, anal sex, and oral sex with that 16-year-old child. And not once in that interview does he ever say anything about a fake ID. And not once in that interview does he ever say, oh, I didn't know she was a minor. Not once. He admits to it all. And you're going to hear it. Make no mistake, Jose DelBosque knew how old Elise was. Just didn't care. And at the end of this trial, we're going to ask that you finally hold him responsible.
Defense, do you have any opening statements?
Defense reserves, Your Honor.
All right, state.
Lift the mic a little closer to your mouth. We got to make sure everyone can hear you, okay? How old are you currently, Elise?
I'm 20 years old.
Are you going to school right now?
Yes.
What year are you in college?
I'm going to be a junior this year.
What are you studying?
Communications.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Antonio,
What school did you go to?
Alamo Heights High School.
Did you go to Alamo Heights for K through 12?
I went to Hebner Elementary and then a Catholic school, Atonement Academy for middle school. Atonement Academy.
When did you start going to Alamo Heights?
Halfway through my freshman year of high school.
You're a mighty mule.
Yes, ma'am.
Who was your best friend in high school?
Sophomore year, Olivia Ramirez.
When did you guys meet?
Beginning of sophomore year in high school.
Do you remember what year that was?
2020, I believe.
Is it before the pandemic hit or during the pandemic?
It was before, so 2019.
How often did you guys hang out?
Pretty much every day, most days.
Did you have classes together?
Yes, we did. We had a couple.
Did you hang out outside of school?
Yes.
Where did you guys hang out?
Either my house or her house, usually hers.
Who did Olivia live with?
She lived with her mom. She went back and forth between her mom and dad.
What was her mom's name?
Trisha Ramirez.
Did you get to see Trisha a lot, or were you mostly with Olivia?
Mostly with Olivia, but she was there most nights, pretty much every night.
Did you or Olivia participate in any teams or school activities with Alamo Heights?
Olivia played for the soccer team. I was not in any sports.
Did her mom go to those soccer games, do you know?
She was at one that I remember because I was there, but I'm assuming yes.
Did you go to Olivia's soccer games often?
I went to one of them.
Okay. Not a big soccer fan?
Not the biggest, no.
While, as you became friends with Olivia and spent time at her mom's house, did you meet anyone else at their home?
I met Jose at her home,
And who was Jose?
her mom's boyfriend at the time.
Okay, and do you see Jose in the courtroom right now?
Yes,
Okay, can you please point him out and identify an article of clothing he's wearing?
he's wearing a pink tie over to my right.
Let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant. Do you recall how long into being friends with Olivia that you met Jose?
I do not remember exactly when I met him. I can't give you a date.
Was it your sophomore year or your junior year?
It was definitely my sophomore year, probably maybe towards the end or summer.
And whenever once you met him, did you guys talk a lot? Like, what kind of relationship did you have with him?
I barely ever talked to him. He was just there sometimes, would stay the night. He was kind of just there. We didn't really have many conversations.
Let that phone get turned off. Now, at any point in time, did you get Jose's number?
Yes, I did.
When did you get Jose's phone number?
I believe it was Valentine's Day during the freeze,
What year was that?
2021.
How did you come to get Jose's phone number?
My parents didn't want me driving, with the icy roads. So he went and picked me up at my grandmother's house. Him and Olivia drove to pick me up. And then, he asked for my phone number in the car, said like in case I need anything.
Did you think anything of that, or was that a normal request to you?
I thought it was pretty normal. It seemed like, I don't know, like an adult thing to do. Like if you ever need anything, it didn't really come off as too alarming, I guess.
Okay. After that, did he ever text you?
Yes, I don't remember exactly when, but he did start to text me.
What types of conversations? What was the kind of subject matter of those text conversations?
It was mostly just him starting off as like a hi, and then me ignoring them, and then just him trying to get my attention, I guess, start a conversation.
Was there ever anything flirtatious about any of those texts, or were they pretty normal other than wanting your attention?
Yeah, they're pretty normal.
Now, at some point, leading up to the night in question, had he ever bought alcohol for you guys before?
I can't remember exactly if before this. I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
but I can't think of an exact date, so.
Okay. Now let's talk about you and alcohol. Did you have a fake ID?
I did have a fake ID, yes.
How long have you had that fake ID?
I think probably less than a year at that point.
Did Olivia also have fake ID?
Yes.
Where did you guys use them?
Mainly just at gas stations, sometimes bars, not often.
By March 5th, 2021, did Olivia's mom or your parents, or did anybody know that you guys have these fake IDs?
My parents did not know. I'm not sure about Olivia's parents, if she's ever been caught with one before.
Had you ever shown your fake ID to Jose?
No,
So tell me about March 5th, 2021. How old were you at the time?
I was 16.
What grade in school were you?
I was a junior in high school.
On that night, What did you do?
I was with Olivia all day and then we went to dinner with Jose,
Do you recall where you went to dinner?
El Marisol.
And where is El Mirasol? You want part of town? It's okay if you don't.
I don't remember what part of town, which one it was at, honestly.
And what kind of restaurant was it?
Mexican.
What all did you guys eat and drink while you were at dinner?
I think we got soups and maybe shared tacos, and then Jose ordered 3 cheese fuzz.
And what are cheese fuzz?
Margaritas, I guess, stronger than normal.
Oh.
That's what I know.
And so he ordered margaritas for you, Olivia, and himself.
Yes.
Were you asked for your ID at that point?
I was not at the restaurant, no.
Was Olivia asked for ID?
No.
And so who was the one who ordered the drinks?
Jose ordered the drinks.
What were your plans for after dinner?
We were going to go back to her house and have friends over. Have a couple friends over.
And who's we?
Olivia and I.
Do you know where Olivia's mother was?
She was out of town. I'm not sure where, but she was not in town.
Okay, so Olivia was home alone.
Yeah.
What else were you guys? Did you guys discuss the fact that you guys were gonna go kind of hang out at Olivia's house at dinner?
Yes, yeah.
Was there any discussion about buying alcohol for this party?
Yes.
What happened with that conversation?
Jose offered to buy us alcohol.
And did he go and buy the alcohol?
He went and bought the alcohol at a gas station near her house, and then I met him there and then brought it all back to the house.
You met him at the gas station?
Yes.
Do you remember how much alcohol he gave you for the party?
3 or 4 cases.
Of,
Seltzers. I think it was just seltzers.
so you said you took the alcohol back to the house, correct?
Yes.
How many of y'all were there just hanging out?
About 10, probably.
Were they all like from y'all's class? Did you have older friends there?
There were a couple seniors there, but we were all in high school.
Did you drink while you were there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall how much you had to drink that night?
I do not know.
A little or to the point of intoxication?
Definitely intoxication.
Now, at any point after he dropped you off or after you took the alcohol and went back, did you talk to Jose again?
Over text, yeah.
Okay. Was he texting you or were you texting him?
He was texting me and then I texted back.
What was he texting you about?
He was asking what we were doing, and he wanted to come over and drink with Olivia and I.
Was that okay with Olivia? Without saying what you said, was that okay with her?
Yes, if there weren't other people there.
Okay.
If our friends weren't there.
Okay. How long were you guys drinking there at the house, if you recall? Like 30 minutes? Was it several hours in between?
It was a couple of hours.
And were you texting Jose most of this time?
No, not most of the time. There were a couple texts exchanged.
Did you agree to let him come over?
I was asking Olivia during, and I was saying if we didn't have like friends over, like maybe when the friends leave and stuff. I was saying like maybe.
At any point in time, did he ask you to leave the party?
Yes.
Okay. When was that? At one point during the night?
I don't remember what time it was. It was getting kind of late though. I remember that.
Why was he asking you to leave the party?
He called me and offered to buy me food. And yeah,
Okay. Did that sound like a good deal too?
yes,
Somebody
it
who'd been
did.
drinking all night? Okay. So what did you end up doing?
I ended up driving and meeting him at a gas station because he didn't want his car to be like shown on the cameras.
What cameras do you mean?
Olivia's mom had cameras set up on the house.
Okay. So he asked you to meet him at the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay, and what happened once you got to the gas station?
I got into his car expecting to go to Whataburger or something, get some food.
And what happened after you got into the car?
Started driving.
Did you go to Whataburger?
No, we did not.
Okay, where did you go?
We ended up at Jose's house.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
How did you know it was his house?
I guess I kind of just figured it out.
Did you have the key?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened once you got inside the house?
He got out drinks and we started drinking a little bit.
What kind of drinks?
I was drinking a seltzer, I think a Truly, and then he had a beer.
Now, just to clarify, these Truly seltzers, are they just like sparkling water or are they hard seltzers with alcohol?
Seltzers.
So you were drinking, where were you drinking in his house?
In the kitchen.
Were you kind of okay with this? Like, what was your mental state at this point?
I was really confused and scared. I kind of just started freezing up. I really didn't know what was going on. I was also very intoxicated at this point.
What's kind of the next thing that happened?
He started kissing me
Where did this happen?
in the kitchen.
How did you react when he started kissing you?
I just froze. I really did not know what to do.
What happened after he started kissing you?
He took my pants off and I was bent over on the counter and
What happened after you were bent over?
started having sex with me.
And so when you say sex, we're gonna have to be specific. What do you mean?
His penis in my vagina and anus.
How did that feel?
Hurt?
Was he wearing a condom?
No,
Did he use any sort of lubrication?
I don't think so.
So after he starts having vaginal and anal sex with you in the kitchen, what's the next thing you remember happening?
I remember ending up in his bedroom and then it just continued.
And when you say by it continued, what do you mean?
Sex.
So you've mentioned you've mentioned anal sex and vaginal sex. Was there anything else that any other part of your body that he touched?
He was touching me all over.
Any other private parts?
He put his mouth on my vagina.
Did he put his mouth anywhere else on your body?
My breast, pretty much everywhere.
And then other than kissing him, did you put your mouth anywhere on his body?
No.
But how long did this go on, if you know?
I have no idea.
Were you saying anything or was he saying anything to you while this was happening?
I was just frozen.
How did it all stop?
He tried to put his penis in my mouth, and then that's when I was able to get up and kind of get myself together and put my clothes back on.
Did he say anything when you got up and started putting your clothes on?
I don't remember what he said.
Did you guys talk about what you were gonna do or what was happening?
I remember saying, like, take me home or I'm gonna Uber home. I just kept repeating.
You just wanted to go home.
Mhm.
Do you know how, like, was this early in the evening, late at night? Like, how late was this?
It was late at night. I really can't remember what time, but it was pretty late.
Um, do you recall, did you take any selfies or pictures or anything while you were at his house?
I did take a selfie, which I don't remember taking it, but I did see it on my phone.
Do you know why you took that selfie?
I do not.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Do you recognize what this photo is?
Yes.
And is this the photo we were just talking about?
Yes.
And is the person depicted in this photo you?
Yes.
And this was taken on the night of March 5th, 2021.
Yes.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of what you looked like that night?
Yes.
And this was taken at Jose's house.
Yes. In the kitchen.
Offer State's Exhibits 1 pending any objection.
All right, State's Exhibit number 1 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Granted.
So Elise, going back to these, we're gonna kind of stop and then we'll go back a little. Going back to these text messages you mentioned, you said that you'd been texting with him kind of all day on the night of March 5th, correct?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
You said that you'd been texting with him a bunch during the day on March 5th,
Yes.
correct? Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Showing you it's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 2. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Okay, and what is contained in State's Exhibit 2?
Our text threads.
And your text threads from day of March 5th, 2021?
Yes.
And how do you recognize these to be the text conversation that you guys had?
How do I recognize it?
Yes, how do you recognize that it's the conversation?
I've read over it after.
Okay, and is there a phone number depicted on here?
Yes.
Okay, and is that the number that you put in for Jose?
Yes.
And is there the other participant, is there an email address listed?
Yes.
And is that the owner of the cell phone, the Apple ID?
Yes.
Whose Apple ID is that?
It's my mom's name.
Okay, does she own the phone?
Yes.
Okay, but are you listed as the user?
Yes.
Your Honor, State is offering State Exhibit 2.
We can go off the record for a moment. So ladies and gentlemen, you may see people popping on my screen. That's another case from this morning. So it has absolutely nothing to do with this case. All right, thank you. And Maria, we're back on the record.
Judge, I'm gonna object. It's hearsay, proper predicate has not been laid. These are phone records. There's no.
All right, if I could see State's Exhibit number 2, please,
Okay.
and come forward and let me view it. All right, state you're offering into evidence, states exhibit number 2.
Correct, Your Honor.
All right, and defense, you have an objection to states exhibit number 2?
I do, Judge. It's.
Oh, you can remain seated.
Oh,
It's
thank
fine. Yes.
It's hearsay. It's not properly predicated. The text.
Okay, let's do this.
All
Let's
right.
take your point one at a time. Let's start with your hearsay objection.
Okay,
All right, what part are you objecting to as being hearsay?
it's a document that's not properly predicated. So that creates a hearsay. It's a hearsay document.
Mhm.
It's like all right, if you have a business record,
Oh, no, I just want your record to be clear. That's why
all
I'm
right,
asking.
as an example, if you it's a phone record. It belongs to the phone company. It goes to a phone provider. Those records, the text records are phone company records, not individual records. So the properly predicated, you have to prove that this is one, that it came from the phone to this phone and come from the phone company. When the state wants phone records, what do? They have to subpoena them from the phone company. They just can't get them off a phone. So it works the same way for the defense. We should make the predicate argument that it's not proper predicate laid.
All right, state.
Yes, Judge, in terms of hearsay, I do not believe this is hearsay. This contains statements by the defendant. And then the only potential hearsay would be the conversation from the complainant. However, that would be contextual as to part of the conversation, which she's already testified about. This just corroborates what she's just testified to. In terms of phone records for text messages, it doesn't go through the phone company. These days it's done from a phone download. In that case, that is what has happened here. The predicate involves looking for specific identifying information. Here, that includes the Apple ID that she recognizes as belonging to her mother, who technically owns the phone, that she is the one who uses the phone. She recognizes her part of the conversation, which she's already testified to it. And then she is the one who she saved Jose's number under Jose with that phone number. That is the number she had for him. And she's already testified to what corroborates it as being, from him, and that they had this conversation about meeting for dinner. Okay, yes, that is the person who met her for dinner, and then getting the
Well,
alcohol. Yes.
This is where I want to start with.
Mhm.
So let's start with defense counsel is stating that one of the hearsays is the complainant statement. With regards to the defendant's statement being hearsay, the court is going to overrule that. So we're looking at how is what she's alleged to have texted in states exhibit number 2 not hearsay.
I would say that it is contextual, Your Honor. It, without having her side of the conversation, his side of the conversation does not make sense.
Are you
Your Honor.
offering what she has stated for the truth of the matter, sir?
No, Your Honor. It's mostly to show the context of what he is saying.
All
So
right.
therefore, it would not be hearsay.
But
And she has
reading it-
already testified to most of what her side of the conversation was.
But reading it, Judge, it's the truth of the matter asserted. It's English. It says exactly what it says. And still, you're dealing with phone records, even though they're trying to say it's text. Texts go somewhere. They go through phone lines or transmission lines or cell lines, and they go through a phone company. So my position is, Judge, proper predicate is not laid for the admission of phone records.
All right, just one moment. All right, I'm sorry. You can continue.
Okay, well, that's my point, Judge. It's not a proper predicate. In order to bring in phone records, they either have to have a business record affidavit or somebody from the phone company to come in and verify, in fact, that is whose phone they claim it is. There's absolutely no probative evidence except a printed form of alleged text messages. They're not admissible. It has no proper predicate. The phone company has not come in and verified this phone number belongs to this man or this man, that hasn't been established.
And just one moment. excuse me, to the complainant, if you will. All right, let's start with authentication. Authentication.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So didn't the complainant establish that this is her number and this is your client's number?
That's still not sufficient, Judge,
Why not?
because it hasn't been properly authenticated. I mean, just because she goes up there and says it's a number is not sufficient. It's a record. It's a phone record. It's has to be proved up as a phone record. She's just testifying, this is his number, this is my number. We have to establish that that transmission is accurate.
All right, so you're saying that she cannot properly authenticate.
That is correct, Your
That-
Honor.
This is his cell number and that's her own cell number.
And that this has not been altered in any way. This has not been it's complete. You need the phone records, the text records from the phone company in order to make it complete.
All right, do you want to address his argument that this has not been properly authenticated by the complaining witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe it has been properly authenticated. She has testified to the contents of the conversation, how she knows it's him, how she knows it's hers. Further, this is not a phone record. This is from a phone extraction. And so there would be no cell phone company to subpoena. This is a direct download from her cell phone. And I believe that any sort of question of authenticity would be more of a weight, not admissibility, to Your Honor. She has already authenticated it. She knows that it's her that had the conversation. She can say that that was her, and she can say why she knows it's him, which she has already established in saying that that's the number she put in for Jose. That's who she had saved under Jose, and the contents of the conversation line up with the events as they happened, Your Honor. That is the who she has been texting that entire time is the person she knows as Jose. And then just one further step with the hearsay and her thing being contextual, this is also rule of optional completeness, Your Honor, to give the jury the whole context.
All right, rule of optional completeness. Are you telling the court that the download from Cellbrite, that this is the entire conversation that the complainant had on March 4th through March 5th?
Yes, Judge.
All right, have you turned over this to defense?
There has been a notice of additional discovery for the large phone download that has been available since summer of last year, Your Honor.
All right, and defense, have you had a chance to review the entire download
I
from
have,
Cellbrite?
Your Honor.
All right, everyone, just give me a moment. I'll make my ruling. I need to take this plea very quickly, then I'll come back with my ruling.
Sounds good, Judge.
Thank you. All right, Martin Guerra. And
Good afternoon.
Brandon Diaz. Hello,
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
good afternoon. Maria, are you able to go to another record on another case? All right, are you ready? Court is calling 2024 CR 2831, State of Texas versus Brandon Diaz. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state? Defense?
Martin Guerra.
And are you Mr. Diaz?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the defendant and his attorney are appearing by Zoom. Any objections from the state? And Mr. Diaz, do you have any objection to appearing by Zoom?
No, Your Honor.
And of course, Mr. Guerra, do you have any objections to your client appearing by Zoom?
No objections.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily consented to plea by video conference. Counsel, have you received all of the discovery in this case? Did you review it with your client?
I have, Your Honor. Yes.
Court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Diaz, did you review the document entitled Application for Deferred Adjudication or Community Supervision with your attorney? Did you understand it and sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you review the true bill of indictment with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment?
Yes, Your Honor.
State, are you proceeding on the indictment as presented? Mr. Diaz, did you review the document entitled Court Admonishments with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you electronically sign it in all the appropriate places?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand you're charged with endangering of a child? That's a state jail felony. Range of punishment is anywhere from 180 days up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you have a plea bargain agreement with the state, the court does not have to follow your plea bargain agreement. If for any reason the court does not follow your plea and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in the right to remain silent?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand by entering this plea, you were giving up those rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand if the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, the court could find you guilty and sentence you up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, has your client been able to provide you with any defenses?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe he has a rational as well as a factual understanding of the charges against him?
I believe so, Your Honor.
Do you believe he's currently competent and was legally sane at the time of the offense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Diaz, has anyone threatened you, coerced you, or placed you in fear to get you to enter the plea?
No, Your Honor.
Anyone promised you anything other than the plea?
No, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the way you've been represented?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Court will find that the defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to jury trial. Did you review the plea bargain page with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
According to the plea, the state recommends deferred adjudication. They're taking in consideration 2024 CR 007983. Did you understand that to be the plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, is that the plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
State, is that the plea?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz, did you review the waiver of appeal paragraph with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you electronically sign it in both places?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand by signing that you're waiving your right to appeal? The only items that can be appealed are written pretrial motions that have been filed, heard, and ruled upon by the court. Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, have there been any such motions?
No, Your Honor.
Outside the agreement, the state is recommending that your deferred adjudication be for a term of 5 years, and they're recommending parenting classes. Did you understand those were recommendations from the state and the court does not have to follow those recommendations?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then to the offenses charged, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No contest, Your Honor.
State, any evidence? Any objection?
No objections.
Mr. Diaz, did you review the document entitled Waiver and Consent to Stipulation of Testimony and Stipulations with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you sign it in all the appropriate places electronically?
Yes, Your Honor.
Again, did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state will call in the right to remain silent?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand that today the state will be presenting evidence in the form of witnesses' statements and police reports, but most importantly, there'll be no live testimony? Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Court will find that defendant has knowingly and voluntarily waived and consented to stipulation of testimony and stipulations. Court will accept into evidence states exhibits 1 and attachments and review the same. After reviewing state's exhibits 1 and attachments, the court will find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty. The court will defer finding of guilt as you've applied for deferred adjudication. Are you proceeding with sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor. We'll waive PSI.
All right, anything you wish to say on behalf of your client?
Your Honor, I've represented him for over a year now, and it was very clear he wanted to accept responsibility for this. He proactively asked me if there's anything he could do to help improve his situation and help himself. He's already taken the parenting class. That was from a list of providers that the probation officer provided him. He unfortunately can't undo the past, but he is really focused on the future, wanting to be a better person, a better father, a better role model. So I respectfully request you follow the plea agreement.
All right, is CPS involved in your life, Mr. Diaz?
No, ma'am, not at the moment. Not right now.
Were they previously involved in your life?
I believe so. When this incident had occurred, I believe that they were involved and then they closed the CPS case.
All right, and when they closed the case, what did they do?
So when they opened it, I was in custody in jail, so I don't know too much about it, but I know that the CPS went to my parents and my son's mother's house, and then they closed it within a month, I believe, while I was in there.
All right, and how old were you at the time of this offense?
24.
How many children do you have other than this 3-year-old?
That's it, Your Honor, just my 3-year-old.
So do you realize what could have happened?
Yes, Your Honor, and it breaks my heart to this day that I had put my own son through that, and I can ensure that it would never happen again.
So why did you take off from the police?
Your Honor, I had got very nervous and I was going through a rough patch in my life, and I just panicked, and I just was planning just driving straight home, and I was just really panicking.
All right, those rules that people seem to think are true, or the law that people think are true, that if the police are pulling them over, as long as they make it home, then they're done. There's no crime. That's not true. The
Yes,
only
ma'am.
thing that happens when you continue to drive at a high rate of speed and you get home, you just picked up a new case, which is evading the police, which is a 3rd-degree felony. And then you could have killed your child, you could have injured your child, and your child probably suffered some trauma because his father is speeding with him in a vehicle and the police are behind and they're saying high rates of speed. And guess what? If somebody's brake checking you, then you know what that means? If you have to swerve to get around them, that you're not following the rules you were taught when you got your driver's license. Because even if somebody were to brake check, you're supposed to have enough distance between you and the car in front of you where you can stop, even if it's an emergency. Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do?
I'm a water assistant. I work 35 hours a week. We don't get the full time, but I work Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And I've been working there for a while.
How far did you go in school?
9th grade, Your Honor.
All right. So what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Well, I plan on right now. I'm actually gonna go to Palo Alto in September for my GED. I already did the enrollment and everything. I'm just waiting for the new class to start. And then once I obtain my GED, I'm gonna try to get myself into a trade school as far as mechanics. I heard that there was a real good one on military, ISBT.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get myself into that and just be a better role model for my son and do great things.
Okay, awesome. All right, this is what the court is going to do. The court is going to sentence you to 3 years deferred adjudication. Take in consideration 2024 CR 007983. There's to be regular reporting by Zoom or in person. There's to be regular random UAs. And probation, I don't want him to end up losing employment because he has to do UAs. So that'll be within 24 hours of request. Proof of employment within 30 days. There's to be no employment as a home health care provider or with minors. I'm going to order 200 hours of community service restitution. 100 hours of those will be waived once he obtains his GED or is in some type of trade school and he obtains a certificate. And the remaining community service hours will be waived if he provides proof that he's completed parenting classes. I'm going to want field visits 1 time per month for 3 months. And then at probation's discretion. And I'm going to order the defensive driving course. Probation, is there anything else he needs? Mr. Diaz, is there anything else you need from the court to be successful on this probation?
No, Your Honor. No, no, ma'am.
All right, did you review the document entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you electronically sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waive your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we can go off the record. And the 187th District Court, to be successful on probation, communication is key. If there's an issue that crops up that you need help with, let your probation officer know. If you feel as though they're not addressing your issue, then you can always come back to court. We're here Monday through Friday, not on holidays though, and not after hours, and you can come in and address it with me. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so I'm going to send you all to the breakout room. I'll wait there for probation to meet with you, and then you all can excuse yourselves from the Zoom, from the breakout room.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Attorney Guerra, we'll
Yes, sir.
save a copy of the dismissal for you here at court.
Okay, I'll pick it up at tomorrow then.
All right, if y'all both will go back to breakout room number 1, do you see how you can do that?
I just see join breakout room.
Yes, if you'll go to number 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. We are back on the record. So any other objections to State's Exhibit number 2? I want to make sure that your record is prepared, defense.
None further, Your Honor.
All right, then we'll bring the witness back in. The court is going to admit over your objection, State's Exhibit number 2. Just one moment, please. Thank you. State. And if you'll re-offer it. Thank you, Deputy Law. And if you'll bring the jurors back in.
Yes.
Sometimes the word authenticate gets tongue-tied with me. I think it's my Southern molasses coming out.
There's some words that I just can't do.
Like all and soul.
All and soul, Judge. I love it.
What's terrible is when I'm trying to spell cooperation or save cooperation. I have a difficult time
Yeah.
with that.
Well,
I can't spell it to save my life.
Well, there was a comedy show that would come on. And you know how they would spell conspiracy?
How?
They would say it's a C-O-N-spiracy. All right, we're ready.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State.
Yes, Your Honor, we were offering State's Exhibit 2.
All right, defense, your objections are noted for the record.
Thank you, Judge.
That will be overruled. State's exhibit number 2 is admitted.
And permission to publish, Your Honor.
Granted?
May I approach and adjust this, Judge?
Yes.
All right, Elise. Zoom is great. So I'm going to be showing you some text from this text message that's all been admitted under State's Exhibit 2, okay?
Okay.
So we'll just flip to this first page if it'll focus in. There we go. So this one right here that says the Marianne Nellis 2000, Elise Fitch. This is when you're texting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so your texts are on the right-hand side of the page. And then just for context, on the next page, when you see that it's talking with this number that next to Jose on the left side, those are texts from him, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna flip through to show a few specific ones. So it looks like at 8:36, you text Jose. Truly Lemonade, Twisted Tea, Barefoot Ultra White Claws. What is that in reference to?
So when we were at dinner that night, we discussed him getting us alcohol. He offered to get us alcohol and asked me to text him.
And that's what you
Yeah.
requested, correct? Okay. And then he says, you say thank you, and then he says, I'm on my way at 8:37, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'm gonna flip through a little more of this. Okay. So this one, who is this text from?
From Jose.
And what is he asking you?
He said, what time do you think it will be good to get there?
And then you respond.
Her dad just came to the house.
By her dad, who do you mean?
Olivia's dad.
Does he live at Olivia's house?
No,
Were they divorced or separated?
they were separated.
And then what is Jose's response?
Oh.
And then after that, he says what?
So what now?
And your response.
Leaving, then coming back when he leaves.
And then he says,
Okay, where can we meet?
next page. Oh, wait, there we go.
I'm not too far. Let me know. I think it will be better if I come and meet you. Where are you now?
And are you responding at this point?
No.
Some time goes by, he texts you again. What does he say?
Hi.
And what time is on at this point?
Is it 11, 16, 15?
And then you say hi back, and then he's telling you that he's ready, correct?
Yes.
And what does he ask?
Where are you?
And then I'm going to go into the next page. You're telling him that people are still here. And then he says, okay. And then what does he say next?
He said, I will wait.
And then what do you say?
Olivia said she doesn't want you to come, so I don't know what to say.
What does he say?
Do you want to go someplace else? Can you meet me at the gas station?
What do you say?
He said
Judge,
maybe.
I'm gonna object the continued reading of a document that's already into evidence. The best evidence is the document itself.
All right, that objection will be overruled.
Just a few more we're gonna go over at least. And what does he say next?
Okay, I will be there in 10 minutes. See you there, same place.
And then you say,
I can't go right now. When they leave.
he says, okay. Okay, so he says, I will wait for you, correct?
Yes.
And what do you say?
It may be late. I don't know.
Says, okay. And then his next response, and what does he say here in this text?
I got some Truly Michelob. Let me know when you're ready. I also have some Barefoot.
And then you ask how late. And then at 11:55, what does he say?
As late as you need, baby.
Is okay, and then he says you're at the gas station, so that's about the time when you guys go and leave, correct?
Yes.
So. Going back to everything that happened at the house. Do you recall the address of this house?
No, I do not.
Was it here in San Antonio?
It was in San Antonio.
Okay, and was it in Bear County?
I believe so.
Do you remember what part of town it was in?
I want to say West San Antonio.
We talked about everything that happened. You said something about it stopped when he tried to put his penis in your mouth, correct?
Yes.
Was he able to put his penis in your mouth at all, or, okay, how close did it get?
Couple inches probably.
And you also mentioned that he touched you all over. Where all did he touch you with his hands?
I mean, all over my body.
Does that include any genital areas?
Yes.
Okay, what genital areas did he touch with his hands?
My vagina, breast, stomach, thighs.
So after you guys left, where was he taking you?
To Olivia's house is what he said.
Okay, so back to Olivia's. Where did Olivia live at the time?
Like northeast area kind of, with her mom.
What happened on the drive back to Olivia's house?
I remember me making him take me back, and he stopped at a stop sign, turned around, and then went back to his house and tried to get me to stay there for longer. I guess I just convinced him to turn back around and drive. Back to
So after he
Olivia's.
turned back around, was he heading back to Olivia's place again?
Yes.
What happened next?
In the car, he kept trying to reach over and unbutton my jeans and just kept trying to touch me in the car. And I remember being super uncomfortable. And at that point, I was telling Olivia what happened.
How were you telling her?
Over text. And I was kind of explaining to her, asking her what to do, because I was kind of freaking out at that time.
What happened after that? Did you make it back to Olivia's?
No, he got pulled over while we were on the way back.
Do you remember what police agency it was that pulled him over? Do you remember what police agency it was that pulled him over?
Castle Hills.
Castle Hills Police
Department.
Department? What did you feel when the police stopped the car?
I was just scared. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to go home.
How did Jose react when the police pulled him over?
He kind of asked me what to say. I remember him asking me what he should say to them, and that's all I remember.
So when the police came, did any of them speak to you?
Yes.
Did you tell them what had happened, or were you not saying anything at that point?
I did not tell them what happened.
Did you tell them how old you were?
I don't remember exactly.
After you guys were stopped, pulled over, and they talked to you, what happened next? Did you guys get taken anywhere?
Yes, he took me to the police station, Castle Hills.
At some point in time, did you talk to any other officers at Castle Hills?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them then what had happened?
I don't remember what I told them.
At any point in time, did they contact either of your parents?
Yes,
Who did they contact?
my mom.
Did she come to the police station?
Yes.
What happened after she came to the police station?
We went to the first hospital.
Do you remember what hospital you went to?
I do not know.
Okay, why were you taken to the hospital?
To get treated and I forget what the thing is called.
Some sort of exam?
Yes, the exam.
Why did you have to go to a second hospital? Do you know?
The second hospital was for the exam.
And so did you undergo a sexual assault exam?
Yes, I did.
How kind of extensive was that? Where you just kind of looked at what all did you have to do?
I was in probably the worst pain I've ever been in, and take all my clothes off, and she just takes pictures and I guess feels everywhere.
Did she take any swabs or samples from you?
Yes.
And when you say you were in the worst pain, what pain were you in?
Anus, vagina, everywhere. Headache, stomach ache.
I'm gonna pass the witness right now.
Defense?
Good afternoon, Miss Morowitz, is that close?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay, let's talk about that evening. You went to dinner, what, around 5:30, somewhere around there?
Somewhere around that time, yes.
All right, at 8:56, you text Mr. DelBosque your drink order, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that was over at the Valero. How far was that Valero from the house?
From Olivia's house, it was about a minute, right down the street.
Or down the street, so it took you maybe what, 5-10 minutes to go pick up the drinks and then go back to the house? And was
Yes.
all 10 people there at the house at that time?
Not at that time, no. I think they came a little bit later.
Okay, all right, and so it was a pretty big party, you would agree with me?
I wouldn't say it was too big, but
Oh,
there
you been
was a
to bigger
couple of
ones?
close friends.
Pardon? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Been to bigger house parties,
A little bit bigger, I guess.
alcohol there?
Yes.
In fact, you partook of alcohol in bars, didn't you, with a fake ID?
I have before, yes.
Yeah, okay. So you were able to walk into a bar, give them an ID, and you got served a drink.
I have done that before, yes.
Now, at around 9-10 or so, you all show back up the house with the drinks. At around 10 o'clock, Olivia's father comes and busts y'all, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it's my understanding he broke the party up, kicked everybody out.
He kind of drove by, told everyone to leave, and everyone stayed. No one really left.
All right, so eventually the evening goes on. And you meet Mr. DelBosque at the Valero at around what, midnight?
I can't tell you what time. I don't remember.
But you drove to the Valero, right?
Yes.
All right. And you met him there at the Valero. Okay. Got in his car and then proceeded to drive. Isn't it a fact while you were sitting in his car, you were showing pictures of yourself in bars?
Are you saying I was showing him pictures of me?
Yeah, on your
No,
phone. You were showing pictures of yourself in bars. You're denying that?
Don't remember that.
Okay, you don't remember. Okay. Do you have pictures of yourself in bars on your phone?
No, I would delete them.
You deleted them.
Yeah.
Okay, but you used to take pictures of yourself in bars, right?
May have happened before, but I would delete them off my phone because
Yeah.
my
All right.
parents would look through my phone.
But you eventually deleted them.
Yeah, usually right after.
All right. Okay. Now, when you get to the house, you had something to drink, right?
Yes.
All right. Now, I take it did you open the bottle and drink it?
Yes, can.
Okay, it wasn't poured down your throat or anything like that, right?
No.
All right. And you are experienced drinking alcohol. You've been drinking before, right?
I've had a drink before, yeah.
Have you been intoxicated before?
Never to that point, no.
What's your favorite choice of drink?
I object to relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer.
I don't really have a favorite.
Now, when you get to the house and you've had a drink, isn't it a fact you asked where the bedroom was?
You're saying I asked where the bedroom was?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Isn't it a fact you grabbed his hand and walked into the bedroom?
No.
Your first communications concerning the incident was with Olivia, is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Your
again?
first communications concerning what happened
Yes.
was with Olivia.
Yes.
And you would agree with me, you're the one that asked Jose to get you booze.
Yes.
And by booze, we're talking basically seltzer and beer. Not hard,
Yes.
not hard alcohol.
Yes, because he offered before, so we took up on that offer.
Now, it's interesting. I believe you were testifying about the fact that he was asking if you were hungry, wanted food, and you were thinking about going to meet him for food. Yet, however, on none of those texts was there ever any mention of food. You would agree with me, that's correct, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it was over a phone call.
Yeah. So that was a misstatement by you, saying that he was texting you, offering to get you food, when in fact the text itself showed there was no offer of food.
I never said the food was on the text.
Pardon?
I never said that the food
Oh, you
conversation
never
was
said
on.
that he offered to go get you food, that's why you met him?
Well, because he did, but it wasn't on the text.
Oh, but
There
it
was
wa-
conversation about the text on there.
But it wasn't in the text stream that we just showed the jury, was it?
I'm gonna object. He's misstating what the witness has
Overruled.
just stated.
The word food was not over text, but that was a conversation about food.
Okay. So you're texting him back and forth about meeting him. And you're telling the jury that it was about food, yet there's no text about food. Is that correct?
Yes, but there's also no text about having sex on there either, so.
These texts came off your phone. You made copies of them, right?
The police had my phone for a month where they downloaded them.
Okay, so they downloaded all the relevant information, you believe?
Yes.
All right. I'll pass the witness.
State?
Just briefly, Your Honor, just to clarify, Elise, when you were saying the conversation wasn't over text about the food, what do you mean by that?
I mean that on the text, the word food isn't there, but it
Did you have a
was-
conversation not over text?
Yes, it was over the phone.
Okay. When did you speak to him on the phone?
In the middle of those texts there's probably a little break that you can see in the text, but
And that's when you discussed going to get food.
yes.
Pass the witness.
Defense?
Did the police get the phone record of that call off your phone? I would
Um,
imagine if they got your phone, they would have gotten that record, right?
probably. I don't,
Pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excused from the state.
Defense excuses.
All right, the rule has been, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
the rule has been invoked. What that means is you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to, if you speak to someone, are attorneys for the state or the defense. All right, you may step down.
thank you.
All right, and state, if you'll turn off the slide.
Oh, yes.
Mouse. All right, state, call your next witness.
State calls Officer McClellan.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can take a seat. And please keep your voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear if you'll state your name for the record.
Sergeant Brent McClellan.
State.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Sergeant. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, I'm Sergeant Brent McClellan, Cass Hills Police Department.
Can you speak a little slower? I know it's
I'm sorry.
hard, but we got to make sure she can get everything down, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Sergeant Brent McClellan, the Castle Hills Police Department.
How long have you been with the Castle Hills Police Department?
4 years, ma'am.
What is your current assignment?
Patrol Sergeant,
What kind of duties do those include?
traffic control, answering calls, patrolling for mischief.
Now, Castle Hills, how big of an area does that cover?
It's not very large, a couple miles in each direction, ma'am.
Is it a small or a large department?
Definitely a small one, ma'am.
About how many officers?
Roughly 20. That includes criminal investigation, et cetera.
What did you do before you were an officer with Castle Hills?
For a year prior to this, financial advisor, and then prior to that, 20 years in the Marine Corps as an officer.
So you did your 20 and got out, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you on duty back on March 5th, 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what shift you were working back then?
C shift, deep nights, whichever you wish to call it. She shift, some call it deep nights or dog watch.
What hours does that cover?
That'll be 10:30 in the evening to 6:30 in the morning.
So that night, you said you were on duty, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you dispatched to an incident regarding Jose DelBosque?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you respond? Do you recall?
I believe it was off of Friends Road off of I-10, I believe. I'd have to get double check to be certain, but I remember it was in front of a auto dealership.
Okay. And so you were sent out, were Were you sent as like the primary officer? Were you backup? Like what were you being sent out
I was
for?
backup officer early on, had made a traffic stop, and then I was sent to cover him.
Okay. When you got there, you said Officer Earlywine's the one who initiated the stop, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Does he still work at Castle Hills?
No, ma'am. He's Florida Highway Patrol now.
You said Florida Highway Patrol?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so completely left the state.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you get there as backup, was he talking to the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were you sent to do?
He asked me to speak to the passenger of the vehicle.
When you approached the vehicle, was the passenger still in the car or were they out of the car?
They're in the vehicle, ma'am.
Okay, and who was the passenger?
Don't recall the name. It's
Okay, do you make a report when
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
Okay, would looking at that help refresh your memory?
yes, ma'am.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you it's been marked for identification purposes only as State's Exhibit 3. If you want to take a quick look through here.
Yes,
Says-
it's like Elise M. I just
All
don't
right,
remember the
so
last name.
excuse me. All right, so the court reporter has to take down everything that everyone says. And I know it's easy to get into a conversational mode,
Yes, ma'am.
but you're gonna have to wait till the question is asked and then you answer the question.
Yes, ma'am.
And then wait till the answer is finished, then you can answer another question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank
My
you.
apologies to the court reporter.
Okay.
So you're just gonna kind of flip through this, and does this appear to be the full report?
Yes, ma'am.
So go ahead and you can look at this to refresh your memory. Just don't kind of read straight from it, okay?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
hang on just a sec. So now that you've had a chance to refresh your memory, what was the first name of the passenger in the vehicle?
Elise,
Okay. What was your first impression of her when you saw her?
that she was a minor. Officer Earlyline had asked me to get her age because he suspected she was a minor, and she looked like one to me.
Okay. Why did she look like a minor to you?
I have two children that bracket her in age, and she looked about that age group, ma'am.
And how old was she?
She was 16, ma'am.
What was her kind of demeanor when you were speaking to her?
At first nervous. I mean, she just got pulled over by the cops.
Okay. Do you recall about what time this was?
About 2:27 in the morning, ma'am.
And do you know how old Mr. DelBosque was?
He was born in, I believe it was 72, so I'd have to do the math, but
But significantly older.
yes, ma'am.
Did she indicate that he was family or anything like that?
No, ma'am, she did not.
While you were speaking to her, did her demeanor change?
Yes, ma'am. She did at one point get distressed, started crying.
Did this raise any alarm bells to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what kind of was making you feel like something was weird?
When I first asked her for identification, which she didn't have, got her name, date of birth, which she seemed to be free to give. But then when I started asking more questions, she seemed to be more evasive, did not want to give thorough answers.
You said that she had also become emotional too, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you suspect that anything had been happening or like what was concerning you?
When I first asked her where she was, she just said out to eat.
Judge, I'm gonna object to hearsay.
Sustained.
So without kind of going into what exactly she said, kind of what was off about what she was telling you?
Again, she just was not being thorough in an answer. She kept her answers very vague
Okay.
when she should be able to answer the question.
So after, you're talking to her for a while, what did you do next?
Asked her where she had been. And if we're not giving that answer, then advise Officer Erlo, and due to the way she reacted, I do think that something may have happened between her and the defendant.
What did you guys do next?
Transported, she was a minor without adult supervision, so I took her back to the police department and we contacted her parents.
During that time, did you interview her or did anyone else interview
Sergeant
her?
Davila?
Sergeant Davila?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you, at some point during, we're not going to get into what exactly she said, but at some point after her conversation with Sergeant Davila, had she articulated any elements of an offense?
Judge, I'm gonna object because she's asking what the conversation was against with a complaining witness and another officer.
Sustained.
What did you do next involving this case?
I stood by as she made her witness statement.
Okay, she made her written statement.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do after that?
After that, her mother arrived. We advised her to go get a SANE test, at which time I then transported her and her mother to get said test.
Okay, what's a SANE exam?
Sexual assault. Something exam. I
Okay.
forget, I apologize, I forget the end.
It's okay.
Nurse's exam.
Nurse exam, yes. Where did you guys take her?
Initially to University Hospital.
Why did you take her to University Hospital?
It was our understanding that the SANE exam could be done there. In fact, it could not.
Okay. During the course of this, was it determined that a different agency had jurisdiction?
Yes, ma'am.
And what agency was that?
San Antonio, ma'am.
Okay. At what point was the case kind of handed over to them?
As far as on my end, which I can speak to, is while we were at the University Hospital, an officer came over.
An
Basically,
SAPD officer?
SAPD officer. excuse me.
Wait, excuse me. Guys. One question, let him finish his answer. And then another question. Y'all cannot continue to talk over each other. It makes it difficult for the court reporter.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
So you said an SAPD officer came,
Yes, ma'am.
and that was kind of the extent of your involvement in there.
Yes, ma'am. He was the one that was going to transport her further. I ceased interaction at that time.
And at any point, did you speak to or interview the defendant?
No, ma'am, I did not.
I'm going to pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense.
Afternoon, Sergeant.
Sir,
Your initial discussions with the complainant was that she was evasive and seemed to be not wanting to talk or cover up stuff.
more or less, sir.
So she wasn't basically volunteering any information to you concerning what, if anything, happened to her?
No, she was not.
Pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excused from the state, Your Honor.
Defense, excused?
Excuse, yes, ma'am.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're only allowed to speak to attorneys for the state and attorneys for the defense until this trial has concluded. Do you understand?
I understand. Keep in
All
mind,
right,
sir.
thank you. And if you will hand exhibit 3 to the court reporter before you leave.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, state, call your next witness.
The state calls Sergeant Davila.
You take a seat here, please. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the court reporter can hear and the members of the jury can hear.
Yes, sir.
And if you'll state your name for the record.
Jose Rafael Davila.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Davila, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing well.
And where are you currently employed?
With the city of Castle Hills, the police department.
And how long have you been employed with Castle
I've
Hills?
been with Castle Hills a little over 11 years,
How long have you been an officer?
27, 28 years.
And in your 27 to 28 years, can you run through, I guess, what type of shift do you usually work?
For the majority of my career, I worked overnight shift, which is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And for the 10:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., what do you guys call that at Castle Hills?
We call it dog watch and most agencies call it the same.
So For your time at Castle Hills, did you start as a sergeant there or?
I started as a patrolman and then corporal, sergeant, and then now lieutenant.
Okay. And with respect to becoming, at the time in 2021, were you a sergeant?
I was.
And what does it take to become a sergeant?
I mean, you just got to be have knowledge on penal code, traffic code, and obviously department policies and city policies.
And do you remember an incident on March 5th, 2021,
I do.
involving Jose DelBosque?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, when did your involvement begin with the case?
I got involved by Officer Garrett calling me and telling me that there was a juvenile or a child involved and that they were going to transport her to our office.
So there was a stop of some kind, but then essentially you're saying there was a juvenile involved, correct?
Yes, sir.
And actually, with respect to your future testimony, would it be helpful to have a copy of your report available to refresh your memory?
Sure.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And it's Lieutenant now?
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant, please feel free to use that to refresh your memory. But please, of course, don't read directly from it. It's not evidence.
Right, and could you mark it?
It has been pre-marked as State's Exhibit number 3.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Lieutenant, if you want to turn to the penultimate or maybe second to last page in terms of, again, refreshing your memory with your report.
It's page.
My approach again, Your Honor.
Yes.
I don't think it's a second to the longest. There you go.
So Lieutenant, again, with respect to March 5th, 2021, you're a sergeant on night watch or
Correct.
night duty, if you will.
Yes, sir.
And again, just at the beginning, how did you become involved with this case?
Just because it was a juvenile and somebody has to be with them at all times. So the other officers were involved in that traffic stop. And I kind of got it put into the place to watch over her.
And when you say watch over her, were you at Castle Hills Police Department, like the
Yes.
headquarters?
Correct.
And if I'm understanding you correctly, she was basically brought to you at headquarters.
Yes, sir.
And physically within that headquarters, were you in your office?
Yes, I was in my office at the time.
Now, how long, or I should say, how much time had passed between the time of the stop and the time that this juvenile is sitting in your office?
From the time of the stop, I'm not sure. From when they told me they were bringing her, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
And do you remember that juvenile's name?
I do not.
You want to take a brief moment potentially to
I listed her as just a victim on it. I should have brought my glasses. Your Honor, may I use my flashlight?
Yes.
My vision's not as good as it used to be.
Lieutenant, if I may add light of my own, would the name Elise ring any bells?
Yes, sir.
So,
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained.
so officer, juvenile is sitting in your office. You said that maybe it's been about 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
With respect to her body language, her demeanor, what were you observing at this time?
She was kind of shut down, almost, she was scared, wouldn't make any eye contact, and she kind of seemed like she was ashamed.
And anything else? Was she, anything else you could observe about her person?
Just the main thing I noticed that she would not look at me at all. She came into my office. My office is pretty big and she would not make any eye contact, just stared at the floor.
And without getting into what you said, did you try to ask her some questions?
I did.
And without getting into what she said, did she respond to those questions?
She did in a very, low tone voice, kind of like she didn't want to really speak out.
How long had she been in your office before then whatever the next course or step or action was taken?
Maybe 20 minutes,
And what was that next step or action?
for me to find out who her parents were.
And how did you go about finding out who her parents were?
She gave me an information and a phone number, and we were trying to find out an address. The address she gave me came into Elmo Heights. So I called Elmo Heights, see if they could contact the mother. They ended up telling me that the house was not actually in Elmo Heights, was in San Antonio.
So because her home was in San Antonio, did that get the ball rolling, or was that one of many things that contributed to SAPD's involvement?
Correct.
And SAPD, of course, being San Antonio Police Department.
Correct, sir.
So were you able to eventually get a hold of this juvenile's parents?
Yes.
And what happened next?
A detective, I think from San Antonio, transported it to my office so she could meet up with her daughter.
And just for clarity, when you're saying someone transported her, is that the mother?
The mother, correct.
So was the mother eventually in your office?
Yes.
And how long were mother and daughter in your office for?
I was in and out. They were probably there another 30 minutes. They were mostly with Sergeant McClellan.
And without getting into what she said, what was the body language or demeanor of the mother that you observed?
She was pretty upset.
Again, without getting into what she said, did she seem knowledgeable about like what was going on that night, or was she seeming
No,
off guard?
she was.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
We'll move on, officer. So, again, how long were they in your office for before the next step?
About 30 minutes at the most.
Okay. And where did they go from there?
From there, they were with Sergeant McClellan, and they went to, I believe, University Hospital
And why send the juvenile to University Hospital?
for a SANE exam.
And why send someone for a SANE exam?
Possibly see any injuries and possibly gather evidence.
Okay. Gather evidence of what kind?
But biological evidence such as semen or hair, other stuff that they can gather.
Now, is this something you do when every juvenile comes to Castle Hills Police Department?
No, it's strictly for possible sexual assault cases.
And why did you do it in this case?
Because she made an outcry to me.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Without getting into what anybody said, was there articulation of elements or things that led the police department to then recommend and provide the transfer to university for a sexual assault nurse examination?
Well, the conversation was had in front of her mother. And I was, to say the least, kind of blunt. And the juvenile responded yes.
She responded yes in that.
I asked her, did his penis
Judge, I'm gonna
penetrate your
object if We're
vagina?
getting into
Sustained.
conversations again.
We'll move on. So after,
Just one moment. Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
you're not allowed to answer any question about what someone said.
Okay.
So I would need you to listen clearly to the question and only answer the question that's being asked of you.
10-4, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
to the best of your knowledge, Lieutenant, after the arrival of the juvenile to university, what happened next?
After that, I wasn't privy to it. Once Sergeant McClellan took the girl and her mother to university, I was no longer part of it.
And is it your understanding that at that point, San Antonio Police Department took over essentially jurisdiction of this matter?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I
Defense?
have no questions.
All right, is this witness excused?
Excuse from the state, Your Honor.
All right,
Excuse from the defense.
the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone except for attorneys for the state or the defense. And if you'll leave exhibit number 3 with the court reporter, please. Thank you. State, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Officer Acosta.
All right, could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, just have a seat. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear and the court reporter can hear. If you'll state your name for the record.
Devin Acosta.
State.
Mr. Acosta, how are you today?
I'm okay, yourself?
I am doing well. Now, Mr. Acosta, where do you currently work?
I'm still with the city of San Antonio, but I'm with the Metropolitan Health District now.
And what do you do with the Metropolitan Health District?
I'm a supervisor for the Central Crisis Advocates.
Now, at what point in time did you begin your employment there?
June of 2022.
And what were you doing before June of 2022?
I was a crime scene investigator, civilian with SAPD.
And how long had you been a crime scene investigator with SAPD?
For 4 years.
So around what time frame or time range were you a CSI with SAPD?
June of 2018 to June of 2022.
And having never seen the famous TV show myself, in your real world experience, what does a crime scene investigator, a CSI, do when they get to a crime scene?
We assist officers, detectives, anyone with SAPD pretty much with documenting evidence, such as photographing, collecting evidence, anything that they really need us to do.
And in terms of an average day, week, month, how often were you called out to crime scenes to either one, collect evidence, or two, take photographs?
Photographs would be daily, anywhere from 1 to 4 cases a day. And then for evidence, probably about 1 a day, sometimes more depending.
And now, Mr. Acosta, do you remember March 5th, 2021?
Not specifically the day.
Do you remember a case involving Jose DelBosque?
I remember working a case on that day.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I want you to know. Yeah, 100%. Now, Mr. Acosta, do you recognize what I've just handed you?
Yes, this appears to be my crime scene search report.
So, Mr. Acosta, please feel free to use that report to refresh your memory, but it's not evidence. Please do not read directly from it, okay?
All right, and is that still State's Exhibit number 3?
And Your Honor, this has been marked as State's Exhibit number 4.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Acosta, if you want to just take a brief couple seconds just to kind of familiarize yourself with your report.
So this is a variation of my CSSR. It has some extra stuff that's, I guess, added when the court requests it. So it's not exactly how I submit it or how it appears whenever I submit it.
But in large part, this is product that is derivative or related to the work you performed on scene.
Correct.
And can you explain what a CSSR is?
It's a supplement that we type up, a crime scene search report of basically stating what we did, what we saw, and any evidence that we collected, photographs. describing
Absolutely. And with just respect to total clarity, the name in the bottom left-hand, with respect to the officer or the signatory, whose name is that?
Mine.
So on March 5th, 2021, you show up on scene, and for the first thing you did with respect to this scene in particular.
There was another CSI, a daylight CSI, who was already on scene. So I got with him and he kind of just briefed me in on what had been told thus far.
And is that common for multiple CSIs to potentially be on scene, briefing one another?
Correct.
And after you were briefed by the other CSI that was on scene, what actions did you then take?
He pretty much walked me through the scene just to kind of show me what was there, what detectives were interested in, and it's pretty much it from there.
And when you walked through the crime scene, was there any requests made of evidence to collect on your behalf? Meaning, did someone make requests of you?
Yes, the CSI Machado had advised that the detective wanted like the bedding collected and some other stuff as well.
And go ahead and take your time. You mentioned the bedding. What other stuff?
From my report. So it looks like a business card, a cardboard label, a vape pen, a gummy ring in a plastic Ziploc bag, some apparent white capsules with unknown substances inside of them, and a can that had Czar labeled on it. And of course, the bedding. And there is a Miller Lite beer can that they wanted swapped.
So, with respect to, you had made some mentions of the beer can and the bedding. So with respect to those two, just taking them one at a time, with the beer cans, what actions did you take?
Looks like I swabbed them there at the crime scene.
And how do you go about swabbing anything at a crime scene?
So usually a CSI, which this appears to be in Machado, would photograph it as it is, as the scene, put an evidence placard next to it to identify the item of evidence, and then photograph it again with it. And we have sterile package swabs. We open it up, put some distilled water on it just to kind of get it a little bit wet. And then we swab usually where the mouth more than likely would have been on or like in this case, the beer can.
And with respect to the bedding, what kind of action would be taken there with respect to the collection or taking of a swab?
So with the bedding, we do not swab. We just collect as is. Once it's photographed, of course, it goes into brown paper bags that are folded up, sealed, and then they're secured into our CSI vehicles until we leave the scene.
And is that absolutely in accordance with policy? Swab some things, collect others, just depends on the item.
Correct.
And after, again, focusing on those two, the beer and the bedding, were there any other actions with respect to those two items that you personally took, or can you help elucidate or shed light on your involvement with those items after they leave the scene?
So since I'm the one that collected them, I stick with them. We go back to our crime scene unit room at the Central Police Station. At that point is where I package it and seal it with the red evidence tape, make sure everything looks good. Once that's all packaged, we put labels on them. Once the labels are put on there, then we put it in our property room.
And forgive me for breaking this down just a little bit, but when you say you leave the scene with them, are you talking about literally physically with you?
Correct. The evidence is with me in my vehicle.
With you in your sight at all times?
Correct.
And you mentioned kind of the red tape, literally this red tape. What does that signify? What is the purpose of kind of the marking and the tape before something goes into the property room?
It's a special kind of fragile evidence specific tape. So basically if it's altered or open, like for testing from the lab or whatnot, it will tear or rip. So it can show if it's been tampered with or opened. And it's, I'm sorry. And it has our initials on it. So we initial badge number and date also to kind of mark when that tape was put on.
And this is standard procedure?
Correct, yes.
And once it goes into the property room, where or to what avenues can you then re-access it yourself?
Once it's put into our property room, they have lockers. So as soon as they close, we cannot reopen them. It has to be someone from the property room to either open it from the other side of the back end, or they have to come in with special access.
So with respect to the collection on scene, the transportation, the marking, the putting in the room, at that point then, is it safe to say that your involvement with respect to that evidence is concluded?
Correct.
And you mentioned the labels, and again, I'm just kind of delving a little bit deeper on that. How exactly do you label them? Like what goes into a proper label?
The label would have my information, the case number. It's been a minute, but basically information pertinent to the case. And then it's printed out there at the ICE office, that's the crime scene unit.
Just a brief moment of the court's time, Your Honor. And with respect to the case number that you mentioned, That's like an SAPD case number.
Correct,
It's the same number that's even listed on your report, correct?
correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Defense?
Afternoon, Mr. Acosta.
Hello.
Now, when you were, I take it this was the residence of Mr. DelBosque that you were taking pictures of?
I didn't do pictures.
You didn't do pictures?
No, sir.
You're just collecting physical evidence?
Correct, yes, sir.
With regard to the bedding, what did you collect from the bedding?
Can I go through my
Yeah, sure.
So it looks like a maroon and white blanket that was on the top bedding of the bed, a white blanket with the square pattern on it that was beneath the maroon blanket, one white thin bed sheet, a white pillowcase on the right side, white pillowcase on the left side. I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. Yes, so a white pillowcase on the right side, and then another white pillowcase on the left side, a white fitted bed sheet, and then a white mesh and fabric mattress topper.
And when you observed the bed, it was in disarray. It wasn't made, right?
Correct,
Like somebody had been sleeping in it or staying in it?
yes.
I'll pass the witness.
No further questions from the state.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse from the state.
Excuse me, defense, Your
All
Honor.
right, the rule has been invoked. That means you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone except for attorneys for the state or the defense until this trial is concluded. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Please leave State's Exhibit number 4 with the court reporter. And State, call your next witness.
Yes, I will. Can I first see if I can find any more exhibit stickers, Judge?
Sure.
You have some? Thank you. State calls Linda Whitty.
All right, if you'll take the stand here, please. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat. Please keep your voice up so that the jurors can hear and the court reporter can hear. If you'll state your name for the record.
Linda Whitty, Witte.
Right, state.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Whitty. How are you currently employed?
I am not employed at the time. I am a consultant for A&M at this point.
What do you consult with A&M for?
Sexual assault nurse examiner. We teach nurses that want to become sexual assault nurses in a live sim lab that they have there.
So before you retired, what did you do?
I was a sexual assault nurse at Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital.
For how long were you a sexual assault nurse examiner?
15 years, coming up to 15 years.
And before that, were you like an RN? What were you before you became a SANE?
Yes, I've been an RN for 42 years, specializing in trauma mainly.
So kind of tell us, what is a sexual assault nurse examiner?
So sexual assault nurse examiner, they call us SANEs, SANE. We're forensic nurses that specialize in taking care of patients who have been through trauma. That includes sexual assault, strangulation, other traumas. And so we're trained to take a history, then a head to toe assessment, a detailed genital exam, and using that history to tell us where to get evidence and where to look for trauma, take evidence and be able to testify to our findings and to help with the comprehensive care of the patient.
So to become both an RN and then later on SANE, what's your educational background and training?
Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
And what all training qualifies you? Do you have to do further training to be a SANE examiner?
Yes, you have to be an RN for 2 years, and then the special training is through the Attorney General's office, and also through other agencies like A&M. It is a 80-hour course. That is just the beginning, and then you do 15 spectrum exams, 8 sexual assault exams, 20 hours of court observation, and then precept with other SANE nurses before you get certified.
And during the course of your work as a SANE exam, approximately how many exams did you perform
Over 1,350.
over the course of 15 years?
Yes.
What do those, in general, what do those examinations consist of?
Do you mean how the exam
Yes.
progresses? So the patient presents to us in a variety of different ways, and we moving to the exam, let me just move straight on to the exam. We do a history taking, like I was saying, where we say, it put down in words exactly what the patient says happened. So that's what we call the narrative. And then we do a head to toe assessment with a detailed examination of the genital area. And we photograph the injuries and then collect evidence, which our narrative leads us to.
Okay. While you're conducting these exams, you said you collect a narrative, correct?
Correct.
What's the purpose of getting the narrative from the person you're assessing?
It's for medical forensic reasons. It's a medical forensic exam, so it leads me to know where to look for trauma to see, is my patient okay? Do they need treatment? Also tells us from the narrative what other things to look for that could go wrong medically.
On March 5th, 2021, were you still before I get into this, when you conduct these exams, who do you conduct them on? Like kids, adults, victims, like who all do you conduct these SANE exams on?
So our hospital, Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital, they see patients, males, females, 13 and above. And then there are other cases, like if there's special needs, that we would see them if they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it always just for alleged victims? Do you do them for anyone else?
So we do victims, which we call survivors. We do survivors as well as suspects.
Now, on March 5th, 2021, were you still working at Methodist Hospital?
I was.
Did you perform an examination on a juvenile by the name of Elise Moravesek?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Actually, can I approach the bench real fast, Your Honor?
Yes.
Show you what's been marked as safe exhibit number 5, if you want to take a look through this real fast.
Okay.
Okay. With the exception of some agreed redactions, does this appear to be a full and complete copy of the exam you performed on Elise that night?
Yes, that is my chart.
Okay, and how do you are these records kept and prepared?
We now, this is electronic, so it goes into a computer and it goes to a safe drive that only the SANE nurses have access to.
And is this your signature on here?
It is.
Okay. And you prepared this report yourself, correct?
I did.
And this is a complete copy of that report.
Yes, it is.
One second, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to offer State's Exhibit number 5.
We object, Your Honor. It is a medical record that has not been properly authenticated.
Your Honor, she has identified it as a record prepared and made by herself, kept with her only, with them, only the SANE examiners having access to it. She has testified that it is a complete and accurate copy of the report, that her name is on it, and that with the exception of the agreed upon redaction, it is full and complete.
All right, if I
I
could
have one
see-
question
just-
on voir dire.
All right, just one second. If I could see State's Exhibit number 5, please.
Yes, Judge.
And then defense, if you approach. All right, so here's the thing. Yeah, stop. Yeah. Maria, no, we're not. I'm just reviewing State's Exhibit number 5. All right, do you want to voir dire the witness outside the presence of the jury? No. My question is, do you want to voir dire the witness outside the presence of the jury? All right, no.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a brief break. And I will have you all back here at 4:40. Remember my previous instructions. Everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, everyone, please be seated. And defense, you wanted to voir dire the witness outside the presence of the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you may proceed.
Ma'am, the document State Exhibit 5, that is a medical record of Methodist Hospital. Is that correct?
It is not, it's a medical forensic document. It's actually kept separate from the medical records. So the medical record department has no access to those charts.
Okay, but is this part of the medical records kept within the course of business of Methodist Hospital?
In the forensic department.
Yes.
Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
in the forensic department.
Correct.
All right, and you are presently not employed at Methodist Hospital.
I am not.
So therefore, you are not the custodian of this record. Is that correct? At this time?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, you're not employed with Methodist.
I'm not
Hospital.
employed with that.
Stop, everyone stop. So here's the thing. Question will be asked. It will be answered. Please do not talk over each other. Let the question finish being asked and let the answer finish being given. All right, defense, ask your question.
You are no longer employed by Methodist Hospital, therefore you are not an employee of Methodist Hospital at this time testifying. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So therefore, you are not a custodian of the forensic medical records of Methodist Hospital. Is that correct?
I'd had to say, I'm not sure how to answer it. I'll just be on, when I was employed, we were custodian of our own record because that was our record.
But you're not.
But I am not an employee of the
Now.
hospital.
All right, so here's the thing. We're
I
off the
did it.
record. No, we're off the record.
record department of Methodist Hospital. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And since you are no longer employed by Methodist Hospital, that is correct?
That is correct.
Therefore, you are not a custodian of any of the forensic medical records held by Methodist Hospital. Is that correct?
I think I would say that was correct. I can say that's my record, but I'm not a custodian. You're correct there.
Thank you. No further questions.
Just a clarification, Ms. Whitty, at the time this record was created, were you a custodian of record?
Yes, we were custodian of our own records.
Okay, and at the time this was kind of created and submitted, you were still the custodian, correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, I'll hear argument unless you have further questions.
No further questions.
All right, I'll hear argument.
Judge, the document is spewed with hearsay. To properly admit a medical record, the proper procedure is you either call the custodian of the medical records to come and prove it up, the existing custodian of the medical records, because they got to pull it out of their file, come to court and say, yeah, this is it. Or you file a medical records affidavit.
We have, Your Honor, we found it.
When was it filed?
It was filed.
Was it served on?
Yes, it was. This is the original.
All right, so time out. Do y'all want this conversation that y'all are having back and forth with each other on the record?
No, Judge, we don't need it on the record this time.
But let me pull it up real fast. So this was the affidavit back in 2021, and it was filed, I believe, in 2023 and served on you, but let me pull up the file stamped copy.
And Maria, do you need a break? Okay.
Because this was obtained through the grand jury, right?
The affidavit, yes.
Yeah.
But Michael Villarreal is the one who filed the notice of intent to use this business record affidavit. This was e-filed, it'd be so much faster.
All right, Maria, we will take a brief break while they check to see if everything has been filed. In defense, you can check if you've been given notice. If you would like to step down, you're more than welcome to do so, but the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to talk to anyone except for attorneys for the state or the defense. Thank you. All right, where we left off states you were offering states exhibit number 5. Defense, do you have any objections?
I do, Judge, but it's been properly, they did a medical records affidavit, so I guess it's coming in.
All right, so no objections?
No objection.
All right, states exhibit number 5 is admitted without objection. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to publish?
Granted.
Go ahead. Thank you. It is State's Exhibit 5. So, Ms. Woody, can you just kind of walk us through this report, this SANE exam that you performed on Elise?
Page by page.
What, yes, ma'am.
Okay, the first page is a consent to do the exam and to turn the evidence over to law enforcement and DA's office and other entities that need the exam, need the results.
Okay. Are the people that you examine, are they free to refuse the exam or are they required to have the exam?
They're free to refuse it. Everything we do is their choice.
Okay. So going on to the next page, once you begin the exam, walk me through what all happened during this exam.
So the first part, we meet with the survivor in a separate room from the exam room. And that's where we do kind of a medical assessment, taking the vital signs, asking about allergies, medical history, medications, asking their last sexual contact. And then we get into the history, which the way I do it is I say, this is the part where you will tell me what happened. I will not interrupt you. I will, unless I need to have you slow down, and I will write word for word what you say. And so it is patient states, quote, and exactly what she says happens. So we try not to interrupt unless we need to clarify something. After that is done, then we ask some yes/no questions, and this tells me what evidence to look for. Since that event happened, have you showered? Have you had water to drink, fluid, food? Have you changed your clothing? All the different questions, pretty yes/no questions related to that.
And those yes/no questions, why are they important in terms of like fluids and stuff like that?
It's important to know what evidence. So have they eaten anything would tell me if there might be some evidence in the mouth. Very important is if they've showered or not, or douched. Vomiting, because that can mess up DNA.
So once you started performing the exam on Elise, did you kind of walk through the same steps you take with everybody else?
Yes.
What was her kind of general demeanor as you spoke to her?
She was very anxious. I'm going to refer to my note because I wrote down here the general demeanor. Sleepy but oriented ×3, meaning she's able to tell me what's happening. Related history without difficulty, but with some pauses, and tearful during the pauses. And she was very tense during the genital exam. I wasn't able to do as complete of an exam as I wanted because she was so tense.
And what do you mean by not as complete of an exam? What were you able to do versus were you not able to do?
I wasn't able to do a complete genital exam. I was able to observe the external, the outside part of it, but she declined, just could not. Her legs were real tight, real close together. She would not let me use a speculum to do the exam. And in that case, she did allow me to do blind swabs, which means that I put swabs in to the vagina to soak up any evidence that might be there. I also put some special dye there that is like a highlighter of injury. I wasn't able to wipe all of it off. I was able to see that it was positive. I wasn't able to wipe all of it off because she was so tense.
And what does that kind of that highlighter that dyed, what does it show? What did it show you?
So
her.
toluidine blue dye is a highlighter of injury. It is a nuclear dye, so it attaches to the nucleus of a cell. Well, the cells on the outside of the body, on the skin, don't have any nucleuses. Nuclei is the proper word. So if there's a scratch or an abrasion, then often that dye will attach to the nuclei that is underneath that skin there. And then when I wipe it off, it stays there. So it is a highlighter and it is indicative, which means it's suspicious of injury.
And did you observe injury on Elise?
I did.
What injuries did you observe?
So she had abrasions, and I'm going to refer to my diagram here. So when we document where injury is, we use the face of a clock. So if you can imagine, see a clock here, there's a clock right over there. So that is, imagine you're looking at the genital area of your patient right there. And so she had injury at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7 o'clock on the labia minora. So you've got, would you like me to explain more about the anatomy?
Yes, please.
So you've got what some people call the big lips, the labia majora on the outside, and inside, going inward, are a set of, you could call them lips, that protect the vaginal area. So that comes down to a V at 6 o'clock. That is the most common place that we see injury. And so that is it's still exterior from the vagina. And so she had abrasions there. She was very tender, determined by, she withdrew when I touched that area. I put dye there and the dye stayed there. She also had injury on the hymen. The hymen is kind of a collar that protects that vaginal area. It's spongy, almost like looking to see if the jurors had any scrunchies. I don't see a scrunchie, but it's like a scrunchie in that it's made to expand, but it's crunched, or medical word, crunched up like that. And so she had injury at 5 o'clock. There was red bruising there. I normally like to put a large Q-tip there and pull it back so I can see the edges and see if she has tears. I was not able to do that with her because she was so anxious and she was so tender.
Kind of walking back to the first full page of the report, what else of note is there on this first page?
Information related to the assault is, what was the relationship of the assailant to you? And move on, or do you want me
Oh, no,
to?
so,
It's okay to.
No, it's okay to go into it. So
So
kind of,
it was an acquaintance and quote, my best friend's mom's boyfriend. And we asked if a condom is used, which she said no. And if a lubricant was used, and she did not know.
so going back up to the history that's on there, this is what you were talking about where you quote exactly what she tells you during the medical exam, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you go ahead and read us the history?
Patient states, quote, around 6:30, me and Olivia went to dinner with Jose. He ordered us drinks. I had one. We went back to the house.
Judge, I'm gonna object. The best evidence is the report itself, and they're just republishing something that's already been introduced into evidence. It's a narrative, basically.
All right, the objection to narrative will be sustained.
Your Honor, this is how we are choosing to publish it, is by having her read it out.
All right, the objection to narrative will be sustained.
Alrighty, what's the next sentence she read? Or the next sentence she said?
May I read this?
Let's kind of, I'll stop you so we don't run on. So what is the next thing she said after he ordered us drinks?
I had one. We went back to the house.
Once again, Judge, it's a narrative.
All right, that will be overruled. You
You can
can
continue.
answer.
Olivia asked him to pick up alcohol for us.
Objection, ex hearsay upon hearsay.
This
Alright,
is already
overruled.
admitted. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go down towards about the middle of the narrative where it says we got to his house, if you could read from there.
Then we got to the house and I got out of the car. We got to his house. I asked, where are we? We're in the kitchen. He started kissing me. I tried to push him away. He stopped. I remember being dizzy, being super dizzy.
Super dizzy. And does the narrative continue on to page number 6?
It does.
Okay. Can you pick up from even before?
Even before that, I was super dizzy. I don't remember how, I just kept like waking up. I was in his bed. He just kept having sex with me. I don't know if I blacked out. I just remembered that I couldn't move. That went on for I don't know how long. I just started feeling normal. I was thinking, what am I doing? I told him to stop. I told him to drive me home or I'm going to order a Uber. He took all my clothes off in the beginning. I barely remember that. When I said I was going to order an Uber and I was trying to put my clothes on, he would grab me to keep me from putting them on. He kept pushing me on the bed. I tried to push his arm, but I couldn't push him off me. I kept saying no. In the beginning, I would freeze or just give up. Near the end,
Judge, I'm gonna object. First of all, it's nothing that she testified to on the stand.
All right, your objection is going to be overruled. You may continue.
near the end, I kept saying, please drive me home. I need to get home. He finally took me to the car. We were back in the car. Everything was dark and blurry. I remember when he was driving off as I was falling asleep. He would just start touching me while he was driving. I would wake up and try to push him away. He kept doing that. I think he drove back to his house. I asked, what are you doing? I don't want to be here. He started driving. He kept touching me. I would say, stop. After a while, he got pulled over. I think he was swerving. I was really out of it. I was super confused. He was asking me what he should say. He told me to tell them that he was a family friend and we went to dinner. He was pulled off. The cop came over to my window and asked for his ID.
And so that's the narrative she gave you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And after she gave you the narrative, what did you do next in the exam?
So then we moved to a private room where there's an examination table. And I did a head to toe assessment, beginning first with her undressing on a piece of paper to collect that evidence. And then she put a gown on and I looked under a alternate light source looking for dried secretions. And then I did a head to toe assessment looking for injury. And then moved to the genital exam. And that's where I examined the outside, took photos, used that dye, did blind swabs. She would not let me do an anal exam because she said she hurt, she burned there, but she didn't want me to look there and she didn't want her parents to know that that happened.
After you completed the physical exam, what did you do next?
After the physical exam, then we gave her clothes to change into and moved back into the consultation room. And we then, we as in the nurse that was working with me, went over discharge instructions, what to do about the anal pain that she was having, follow up, how to follow up with law enforcement, referring her to Rape Crisis Center, which they have free counseling for the rest of her life, she and anyone else involved. She left quite quickly because she was just done. And I wasn't actually able to get a urine sample because she was done. And so that's just a time that we're making sure that she has all her questions answered and she knows what the next step is.
So earlier you were talking about, you ask all those yes, no questions to find out what evidence to collect. Did you collect evidence in this case?
I did.
How does that process work?
After the narrative, we did the very specific yes, no that would tell me, in your mouth, did he put his penis? Did he do this? Tell me what evidence to get. So your question is, how do I obtain the evidence? So depending on where it is. So we do a buccal swab, which is swabbing the inside of her cheeks, and that gets her DNA.
Did you do that in this case?
I did. I did an oral swab, which is swabbing around her gums and her teeth and underneath her tongue. I did swabs of her neck after looking under a light, of her around her mouth because of her narrative, what she told me happened, and her neck and her breasts. And then to the genital area, I swab the outside. I told you about the labia majora, go into the labia minora, all to that area at 6. And then I did the swabs that go into the vagina. And I kept her underwear and her clothing. I also took hair combs, combed through her hair to get any debris since she was in a location that wasn't her location.
How do you collect these? Is it just normal swabs? What do these swabs look like?
So it all comes in a closed kit that comes from a bio warehouse, or it comes from whoever makes the company that makes these kits. And so we unseal the kit, and there are Q-tips that look like Q-tips you're used to. They're in paper and sealed. And we have these boxes, and we have with little holes in them so that the Q-tips will dry and not mold. And then we have individual envelopes for each evidence that we're taking. So when I swab the inside of the mouth, that's the buccal swab, then I put it in that, wearing gloves and everything, I put it in that box. It goes into the envelope. It gets sealed with my initials and her name on it. And all these items get put into the box. Her underwear goes in the box because it came off of her. So I put it in that box. And then the clothing is collected separately. Each piece put in a sack, sealed, and those sacks put in a big sack, sealed. And then that, along with the kit, gets released to law enforcement.
And so in this case, would it have been released to the San Antonio Police Department?
That is correct.
And let's see. I think that's kind of it for Elise's. Now, on the same night, on March 5th, 2021, did you also perform a SANE exam on the defendant?
Yes, it was later that afternoon.
Okay. How do the SANE exams work when you do them for defendants? How do those work?
So the suspect exams are very different from the survivor exams. They always come in by law enforcement, whether they're volunteering or not. The law enforcement must be there through the whole exam. We are not doing a medical forensic exam. My role in this case is just to collect evidence, and that's what I tell them. So I explain to the suspect that my role in this case as a forensic nurse is just to take evidence. I won't ask you about anything that happens. And I go over everything that I am going to do. Do you want me to go into that at this point?
Yes, so yeah, what all do you do for the
So
suspect
this is,
exams?
as I explain this is still part of the consent process. We haven't gotten the consent yet because I want him to understand what I'm going to do. So I will do a buccal swab, which I already told you about, taking the swabs of the inside of his mouth to get his DNA. And then I swab hands and underneath fingernails and move down to the genital area and swab penis, starting with the glands, down the shaft and around the scrotum. I take pictures of any injury and I tell them if I see any injury, I'll ask you about it, and it's up to you whether you answer me or not. And if you answer me, then I write what you say. I explain to them that no Q-tip is going to go in the penis. I have found that that's one of their greatest fears. It's all going to be on the outside. And so I explain the exam, and then I give them the consent form. It's not this one, but I give them the consent form and I explain it to them. This is what you're giving me permission to take these samples and turn it over to San Antonio Police Department. And then I give him the consent to read. And then I read it word for word in the presence of two witnesses. And so he has the choice to sign that consent.
So when you conducted the exam on Mr. DelBosque, did you go over the same stuff?
I did.
Okay. And you don't interview him or ask any questions at that time, correct?
Not at that time, only if I see injury.
And so in this case, is it a separate kit? Like what do you use to conduct the collection for evidence?
It is a separate kit, so it doesn't have as many envelopes. And what I said that we collect, we do for everybody unless the detective specifically says to get another sample. In which case that would be written in on the consent.
And so what do you do? Because I know you're having to do collection on all these different people. What do you do to make sure there's no sort of crossover?
I wear a gown and gloves so that there's no transfer from the survivor to the suspect or the other way around, and change gloves between every part of the body that I'm getting evidence from.
Okay, so after you touch, like, for example, a face, you would change gloves before you touched like a chest.
That's correct.
And did you do that in this case?
I did.
And so when you evaluated Mr. DelBosque, do you recall what all samples did you take, or is it just the same for everyone? You took the penile swab, the buccal swab?
His was a basic exam and I took those samples.
And so that included the DNA from inside his cheek, correct?
Correct.
And so what all do you do? Is it the same thing in terms of packaging after you collect all the samples from him?
Yes, same boxes, same type of box, same type of Q-tips. Most of the suspect exams come in an envelope. We also have box, kind of like the survivor, but it's a much simpler box. The clothing, I'd have to look at my chart to see if I collected his clothing, but normally if we're collecting clothing, he would get undressed on a piece of paper. And just like we did the clothes for the survivor, we would do separate sacks and put them in a big sack. And then we release the chart to law enforcement and the kit.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense.
Judge, can I get that exhibit? that you're
Yes.
gonna do?
Mhm.
Ma'am, it's Miss Whitney?
Witty, as in the
Witty.
Witty Museum?
Oh, okay, Miss Whitty, Witte.
Correct.
I got you. All right. Do you recall the date and time of the examination?
Which examination?
The examination of Miss Morowitz.
Would be, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's March 5th, 2021. The consent was 09/27.
Okay, 9:27 in the morning.
09/27, yes.
And I'm looking over this. Now, her mother was present with her at the time when you did the examination or did the consent.
I don't remember.
Do you require that, since she is a minor, that the mother file the consent and not the individual?
No,
So I take it you did not talk to the mother that day.
I don't remember. I know she didn't want her mother to know what happened. And I don't know if I put in the discharge, whether I discharged to mother. I just don't remember.
During your, I guess when she was giving her narrative, she seemed to be fairly coherent and knew what was going on and was very specific in her narrative.
Yes, she was.
You would agree with me, she wasn't under the influence of any narcotics or drugs or alcohol when she was giving her statement?
I can just say she was alert and oriented. I believe I put that on there. So I knew she was able to do an exam. I'd need to refer to my notes to see if she was sleepy. I don't know if that was there or not.
Now, I notice that State Exhibit 5 does not bear the signature, the consent signature of the individual.
It does not.
Is that a requirement?
Yes, it is.
I'll pass the witness.
Briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Whitty, on page 3, did you make a notation about what happened with the consent signature?
I did.
And what is that notation?
The patient was consented at 09/47. The document was saved, but for some reason the signature was not saved, possibly due to the delay in getting back to the documentation.
Ask the witness.
Any further questions?
No further questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse from the state, Your Honor.
Excuse from the bench, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. And as previously stated, the rule has been invoked. All right, can I have parties approach, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I was just discussing with them what would be the best time to bring you back due to witness availability. So I'm gonna have you all come back tomorrow, and I need you here by 11. I do have a docket in the morning, but I'm gonna take a break from my docket, and a witness that is only available on that date. We'll take that witness at 11, and then I will give you all your lunch break. And then I will continue with my morning docket, and then we'll start the afternoon docket no later than 1:45. All right, any questions before I release you? All right, let me remind everybody, you are not to start deliberating about this case internally with yourself or with each other or anyone else. You are not allowed to do any research. You are not allowed to view anything on social media or on television or through newspapers or whatever medium is out there. Everything that you are to learn about this case is to come from inside this courtroom and nowhere else. Does everyone understand? All right, so because I'm telling you to be here at 11, nobody goes off campus. We can go off the record, Maria. No one goes off campus for lunch until about 12:15. So it's going to be sort of dicey. So if you want to come in the morning, as I said before, you can bring your breakfast with you, your lunch with you. And I think there are movies in the back for you to watch as well. Deputy Laura will speak to you about that. All right. So normally I let you all leave before 5, usually about 4:30 for you to beat the traffic, but I don't like to stop witnesses in the middle of their testimony. But I have saved you because it's 5:15, so you have sort of beat the rush hour traffic from downtown. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.